Welcome to the first episode of Just One More Fix. This is James. With me in this episode is Kurt and Lacey. You can find us online at justonemorefix.com or on Twitter at justonemorefix. If you like us, head over to iTunes or to Google Play and give us a rating and a comment. In this episode, we discuss getting players to try something new and something outside of their comfort zone. And now, it's time to get our gaming fixed.
Talking about?
I'm gonna tell you. Surprise!
It's a surprise. Surprise topic. In 3, 2, 1, go.
Pop quiz.
Pop topic. Pop quiz.
I like it. Pop topic.
It's a new segment here on the show. It's going to be called Pop Topic, where James sits here
Kind of
and
like
he's
Hot Pocket.
no, those
Without
are
the
wait a minute.
diarrhea.
Those are microwave pastries that, by the way, are fantastic. But I will always burn my mouth on
No,
because I
good.
can't wait.
They're
Okay.
awful.
No, what? Oh, the deuce you say.
Anything that's improved by injecting ranch dressing directly into the center of it.
Yes.
Just
It's
throw
an
it
excellent
directly
food.
into the toilet like Jim Gaffigan
What?
said.
Oh no,
And
no,
save yourself the trouble.
no. Hot Pockets. They're like the Lunchables of the. They're just like wow.
Okay, so my question for today is
Pop Topic.
Pop topic, yeah. My question for today is how do you get players to try new games? We talked about, all these different games that we've had, and we here, at least for us, we play a lot of different games.
Huh.
So when it comes to getting people to
Perhaps
coerce,
too many.
yeah, when it comes to getting your player group to play a new game that they don't have any experience with, how do you break down that wall to get them to play it?
Bribery.
That's a good start.
No, I think for me the easiest thing to do is to rope-a-dope them with a topic they're interested in. So if you have a group of gamers that is all about zombie culture, guess what? There's your segue to All Flesh Must Be Eaten.
Yeah, but
There's a great zombie game.
I think we talk about those. Suppose you got the all flesh, you got the zombie group, and all of a sudden somebody in the group says, "I just bought Made." I mean, that's definitely.
I'm struggling to see how you don't see the connection between zombies and Maid.
Okay,
Can you
humor me.
think of a
Humor
messier
me.
house owner than a
Well,
zombie?
That's it. Because for the most part, I will play most games, but I couldn't have less interest in playing Maid. So
So you have
I'm
to
gonna
think
have to
about,
pitch
well, what is James interested in? And I'm
Maid.
going to incorporate that into my plot to
Yeah,
get
but
him to play
I
it.
think
But
he's
that's not-
talking
but
about
see-
the selling of it
yeah,
at
so
first.
but even without the plot, so let's say we want someone to play Dogs in the Vineyard. I just got Dogs in the Vineyard. I read it. It looks really cool. I want to play this game, right? With this explosion of indie games, it's happened, and there's a lot of them that are really good that are out there, but there's a lot of people that are really reluctant to play some of these games. So let's say I just bought Dogs in the Vineyard, and I read it, and I really like it, and I want everyone to play it. But how do I get people that sit at my table that aren't interested in?
Might be skeptical.
Yeah, they're skeptical of it, or it's not necessarily in within their rule system that they're comfortable with and they're used to. So how do you get them to get on board and try this game out, other than saying, let's just try something new?
I don't know that I'm a good example for this. I like to play any game that the person is excited to run. Like if you are genuinely excited about that game, then I think it's going to be a great game, because the best games that people run are the ones that they're excited to be running.
I agree with that. That's a good starting
Well,
point.
I think a good elevator pitch too. I mean, if it's something you have no clue about, like The Warren, okay, when we saw that where you play rabbits. Now, let's suppose I'm a multi-year veteran of Dungeons and Dragons or any of those, Call of Cthulhu, that sort of thing. Now, all of a sudden, you tell me you want me to play in a game where I play a rabbit. That honestly might take it. Now, most of us here, and I think most of the group, is pretty adventurous. But if you had a more skeptical group, how would you do? I think a good elevator pitch, 4 or 5 or 6 sentences where you could encapsulate it. The Warren's about, go.
Right.
And be able to pitch that with an exciting angle of some
I
kind.
guess that being said, I think having good sort of like pop culture references to it is helpful too. So like when you say The Warren, like what's your elevator pitch? Okay, but then you could just tell me, have you ever read the book Watership Down? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm there, because it's an amazing book.
Okay.
So if you can relate it to something that I know and that I enjoy, again, I guess that's kind of what I said earlier, but if you can relate it to something I know and enjoy, then I'm going to be more likely to enjoy that game.
Might even go deeper to a group trust thing. I mean, I think we mentioned.
Yeah, I think you can definitely play on that and say, look, I've ran a lot of great games before. I'm really excited about this game, like you said, but just give me a shot, and convincing them to.
So how
give
many
you a chance.
sessions? How many sessions is a good chance? Like, say we play the Warren, and you're used to Conan, and
I would say 2.
2.
2 gaming sessions. If I don't like it after 2 sessions, I'm not going to like it, because the first session is kind of feeling out your character and getting to know the other people's characters as an introduction to the system. By the time you get to the second session, you may not have a complete feel for it, but you've at least done a little bit, and now you're actually getting into the meat and potatoes of what's going on. And if by then I'm not sold on it, then I'm not going to be.
Okay, it's also one of those things that as a GM, you should probably give your players advance permission to say they don't like it.
Well, yeah, I think you
mean,
don't just
that's
show
that
up the
trust
first
thing.
day and say, "I've got this book, let's play this." I don't think that's the way.
Slam it down on the table.
Yeah.
Boom.
I think you have to build up to it and kind of prep them and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. Let's really kind of think about this."
I've got one more thing too. I think that brings people in. So James and I have been gaming together for a long time, and actually we've all been gaming together for a long time now, but Kurt, I guess, is the newest member to our circle as far as that goes, and something he did differently when he came in that I had never seen before is props. Holy cow. Like, some of his games I may not have been that excited to play. Like, okay, I wasn't totally sold on what was the medieval, what did you call it? The Chronicle game. But he came in.
Shock and horror.
He had a map. He had
Right.
pictures. He had pictures of his NPCs with a short little detail about all of them. And I'm flipping through all of this like, oh my gosh, there's like a whole world. Like, he actually brought that world to life before we ever even played that game with all of the stuff and forethought that he had put into it.
Right.
Like, I'd never, ever, ever played in any game where somebody had created props for a game that wasn't a LARP.
I guess kind of leading into that, once you've got everybody on board to give a session or two a try, how do you increase your likelihood of success to keep that game going? I mean, obviously, you need to be. I think first, you don't want to get bogged down in the rules, so you have to make sure you have a very solid
Agreed.
grasp of the rules, so that when you might need to reference the book, but how does this attack work? Okay, let's go to it real quick. It should be fast and mostly painless. But if you're bogged down and searching through a book, for pages and pages to find rules, I think you've already failed. So you need to make sure, first and foremost, that you're 100% solid on the system.
And if you're a game master, and especially if you are bringing a game to a skeptical group, you need to have your act together.
Right.
Like,
So, I agree. I think something I did
writing-wise, yeah.
Oh yeah. I think for Burning Wheel, which I've got a Burning Wheel game I'm going to be starting here pretty soon. I actually took the book and I got those little sticky tabbies you put on the sides of the book, and I wrote things on there and tabbed them so that, because it's a very heavy rule system, so that I could, when I need to reference this, rule, I can just look on my tabbies and be like, pow, here it is right here. I don't have to go to the index. I don't have to do any of that. I mean, I obviously need to do prep, but there's some other things that you can do, shorten that time to, make yourself more familiar with things.
And I would say also be the game master that says yes more than no, especially in the first, I don't want to say half dozen, but in the first several game sessions, to really give those players, make sure there's room to fail and not be a total party kill.
Right.
And I think that is absolutely critical, because I know when we played that game that Lacey was talking about, that was a homebrew that had been worked on, system for a long time. And to be honest, it's kind of deadly. You take direct stat damage as you get damaged. And so it's entirely possible, if you're unarmored, a single sword stroke will kill you.
To give people some leeway within the rules until they become familiar with the rules.
Yeah.
And I think I'd say, to go along with that, with character creation, once they make their character, the first few sessions, to give them some leeway to be like, oh, I needed to put these points somewhere else. So it's no fun to be the giant, barbarian fighter who can't hit hit anything.
Yeah.
So, like, if you need to move some points around and shift things, then just let it be. And, hey.
I think it's easier too if you're playing a game that no one has really been involved in before, to make it easier for yourself as a GM and for your players. Like, there's no reason in your first session you should be deeply involved in combat and magic and a social battle and all this. Like, introduce different elements of the system as you go. Don't pile on the whole system all in one session.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, wade into the waters, get your feet wet, then go a little deeper,
Right.
Do it kind of episodically and introduce what you're saying. What I'm hearing is introduce those features for the first 3 or 4 gaming sessions. If it's going to be a long-term thing,
Right.
Okay, now we have combat. Now we have social interaction. Now we have magic.
Right,
and
exactly.
let it stack.
Don't as a player dump all those rules on me all at once. I want to get some role playing in without getting bogged down in all that system that I'm unfamiliar with. So you know what I mean? Like when you first try out a new combat system, you spend 45 minutes doing one session of combat because nobody knows what they're doing and you're explaining the rules every single time. Okay, so don't do that. And then pile on another game mechanic aspect for me as well. Leave some room for just good role play and interaction.
Okay, and I think that goes along with the old writing principle of show me, don't tell me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just let's see it happen. Maybe even watch it happen somewhere else.
Right.
But, when you're trying to get people into a world that they're skeptical about, do like a tutorial almost. Make those early encounters more likely to end in success. And I don't mean by fudging the dice or making it artificial. Just like I know that you guys had some fairly weak adversaries in the first 3 or 4 games until you realized, oh my gosh, if I'm not having a shield in front of me, I might die. And then all of a sudden, everybody armed up and armored up, and they're like, okay, it's a little better, and we're going to be careful on horseback because, it's dangerous.
You're fighting the goblins before you take on the dragon, right?
So let me ask you this. In the long run, then, because you were skeptical about that system, what was your verdict in the end?
I loved that game. I thought it was fantastic.
I think one thing, kind of tying back to what you're saying, is to make sure that you're paying extra close attention to your players and how they're responding to you. Find out what it is. Every system, in my experience, it seems like most games do something well, and that's generally what attracts you to them. It's like for a horror game, it does, its horror mechanics well or whatever. And emphasize the things that are important to the game, and then watch for what the players are responding to, and then put the spotlight on what they're responding to, and obviously make sure you hit every player to make sure that everybody gets some spotlight time. Emphasize the points of the game that it does well.
And how do you feel about, I would generally use, and this is, I don't know if I've ever even talked about this before, I would use phone time as a good judge for how things are going. How much time are people spending on their phones? I mean, if people are becoming disengaged on a regular basis, I mean, do you think that would be a good barometer? I mean, to be honest, I've used that.
I think it depends on the rules you have at your table for if you have
although actually, I don't know, we just kind of like gamer ADD or whatever, but we have started now on our Monday night games, we take everybody's cell phone and we put it somewhere else. And
really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We get
it
away
from the table. I haven't been around enough for that recently.
Carrie and Lee are they're just bad about it. They admit it.
We all are. I'm bad about it too. Because you're like, oh, okay, well, they're doing something over there. I'm not supposed to be hearing it anyway, so let me see what's going on,
Because I would use it in the past. I would use it that the quick check was generally okay.
Right.
That there would be an occasional message, and that's fine. But if it gets to the scroll where I'm watching the thumb go, that was like a red flag for me that things are slowing down. So this is going to kill me now because now I'm not going to know when the action is not going fast.
So I think that might work, but it just depends on how your table plays and what the unofficial rules of the table about electronic devices and stuff. But I think even if you don't have cell phones at the table, I think you can just tell by how engaged a person is. Are they just sort of staring off into the wide blue yonder, or are they actually actively paying attention and listening and engaged?
Now, how do you feel about after action reports after that first?
I agree. I think 100% you have to. To get what did you guys like? What didn't you like? What would you like to see more of? What would you like to see less of? That kind of a thing. I think it also.
It's easier with people though too, because then you can. I know if I'm honest with you and if I'm honest with James, I'm not going to hurt your feelings. Yeah. You know what I mean? Some people are too. Where I want your honest opinion. What did you think? What can I do better? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? And those kind of targeted questions.
I think sometimes the immediate feedback is good, but sometimes depending on the game, I almost need some time afterwards to sort of soak it in.
Okay.
Before
yeah, no, I know what you mean.
In the excitement of it all, you remember those few things that happened, but when you go home, your car ride home or whatever, the next day, you're thinking about things or whatever, and sometimes there are things that come to you that's oh man, that was I really like that one part or whatever it is, and it sort of takes you some time to sort of soak it all in and let it marinate around in your head for a little while before you really kind of come to a verdict. So maybe like the feedback initially at the beginning or at the end of the session is definitely valuable, but then maybe, I don't know if it's by email or by text, hey, as a group, what did you guys think? Is there anything else that you can think of that you didn't talk about, at our after game?
Well, and being, in essence, I want to say the outside person in this group, and that all the rest of the group is family. And so this is what I would generally call a very close gaming group. I mean, you're all actually related. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's whether by choice or marriage. I don't know how that came out. That seemed to be that wasn't right. Blood or marriage. However I meant to say. We'll fix that in post-production. That it's a very tight group. It's very small. Like I said, I came in 6.5 or 7 years ago. And
I like how we say you're the newest to come to the group, and it's been almost 7 years.
Yeah, and
it's
so
kind of funny.
Well, and it's kind of funny because no one else has come in and stuck who isn't family in that period of time. So the reason why I bring that up is
that's not fair. We had one. He moved.
Oh, Fergus was here for a long time.
Shout out to Fergus.
Yeah,
shout out to Fergus.
Well, he had to.
We love you, buddy.
I knew him for about a year before he had to leave, but I mean, came into it. And that so the reason why I bring that up is some groups might not be as tight, like the group that I've been going to on Sunday. It's definitely a new group in the sense for me, and almost the other players have been playing together, but they don't have that, quite literally, that family bond that
right. Well, I guess it brings in maybe ours is a bad example to use because it's a lot easier to have trust in our group, I guess, because we are family or whatever, but also because
we have a couple of travelers though too that come down a few times a year and game with us, and like they may not be here as consistently, but they're definitely
also
a part of the
gamers,
group.
and I think that they are just eager to play anything because like we have fun in all of our games.
They're also good.
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean. Like they come to it. They may be new gamers,
Fundamentally good people,
but they're not new to. But they're not new to the concept,
right?
You know what I mean, which is even better in a sense because they don't come in with any baggage. Now you get gamers in from other groups, that game. I forget who said it first. It was another podcast. Somebody called it gamer baggage or something like that. That stuff that you bring from your previous.
That's true though, because you got like people that are like, "Oh, I will not play this game," because they just really hated it the last time somebody ran it, and you're like, "Well,
that's hard to."
They just didn't do a good job.
How do you overcome that then? So let's say I played Maid and I had a terrible experience.
I don't see how that's possible.
and now I'm like, man, the last time I played Maid, the house was a disaster and I could never clean it up or whatever the situation was. How do you get me to say, no, this is going to be the best game of Maid ever?
We had an example with you and Apocalypse World. Actually.
Oh, that's right.
I had.
Okay, so
I don't like to relive it much because it's like a thing.
Tell us
I
about
had
it.
I had a bad experience with
How do you
Apocalypse
feel about
World. I felt betrayed. I felt like as a player you were punished for absolutely everything that happened. I left the table the first time I played it going, well, that's the last time I'm picking up those dice again. And, with a sort of a bitter taste in my mouth of bitterness. And when you said we were going to run something with Apocalypse World, you remember the look on my face because I remember what it felt like.
But I don't remember exactly what I used to get you on board with it, but I think
what was the next game?
I don't remember. I think it.
Was
I
it
don't
Spirit
know.
of 77? I feel
No,
like there was
it
one
was
before
something before that.
Well, actually,
it was either. I think it may have just been Apocalypse World.
Yeah, because I remember what
it was either Apocalypse World or Monster Hearts. One of those two.
Oh, Monster Hearts.
Was it Monster Hearts?
Yes, because remember you mentioned Monster Hearts. I thought it sounded cool. You said Apocalypse Engine, and I think I actually crossed my arms. I'm doing it right now. You can't see it because it's radio. And I shut down for a second.
But see, I think when I
gave you the skeptical.
If I remember the way I got you on board was I literally just told you,
trust me. Just
trust me. And I also said that I think you got in a game where the game master was using the rules punitively to punish you whenever he made moves against you, which in my opinion, that's not how it's supposed to be designed. It's supposed to make the game interesting and challenge the players and not to be punitive. And I just explained that.
So there was some trust.
So
there was an elevator pitch, and then there was a pop culture reference to Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That's like my kryptonite, okay? Because I love that show. I love that show so much.
But I think most importantly, though, what I did was I found out what happened to you in the previous game where you had your bad experience and said, well, I understand you had that bad experience. Well, I'm not going to do that. And this is what I am going to do.
So
would it be fair to say,
so James came up and said, trust me, I know you had a bad experience before, but it's going to be okay this time.
Right.
And I said, okay, how bad? I can trust him, obviously, right?
Yeah, sure. Look at that smile. Come on.
Right.
But no, that's basically what you said was trust me. And I'm like, well, he's never run a completely terrible game.
Thanks for that.
I'm just saying.
Well, I think the other thing I would like to say about all these, there never before, I think, have there ever been so many games out there.
Oh my gosh!
And there's so many of them that are so good, like just so good.
And they're so different.
Yeah.
Because you remember my cognitive dissonance with what was that, Mouse Guard?
Yeah.
When the reverse,
another great one, yeah.
Well, the way the combat works in reverse, and I think that was my first mind-blown experience. I'm like, but I don't understand how it works.
It's abstracted.
And everyone at the table screamed abstract.
There may have been an expletive in there, but yeah, but I think there are so many games out there that are good that there are a lot of people that aren't, by not giving them a chance, they're really shorting themselves on some awesome experiences because there are just so many great games, and especially a lot of the smaller press games. They pick a niche and they do that one thing so well. You're missing out on so much if you're not trying. And that's not that every one of them is a home run, because everybody misses. But there are so many games that are just so great right now.
And I will run Made. I have a watching. The kids at school have given me a list of things to watch, in order to really, you know what I mean, be able to
embrace the genre.
Yeah, and get my head inside the genre, because I don't know the tropes. I don't know the conventions.
So what you're saying is basically, if you're going to run one of these games, you need to do your homework.
You have got to do your homework, especially if it's something you're not accustomed to. Find somebody who loves that fandom and let them tell you the best things about it. Like I said, you sold me on Monster Hearts when you had me at Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was like, okay, slam my fingers in the drawer. I'm willing to try it once.
Right.
And I had the opposite reaction. Okay, only if everybody else at the table is doing this, but I'm not going to like it. But I did.
You let the peer pressure carry you.
Right.
You surfed the wave of peer pressure. And I didn't regret it at all.
So the other thing I guess I just thought of is maybe you can kind of do some gerrymandering, where if you've got a table full of people and like I know that Kurt really likes Buffy, but nobody else does, and maybe I can kind of get Kurt before we game.
Oh, that's easy. That's simple. You can get me stoked up. I'll be like, we're doing this.
But then you've got an ally, kind of like
it's called a conspirator.
Exactly. To trying to get your other players on board. Maybe that'll make things a little bit easier. To sum up is 1, do your homework. 2, make sure you really know those rules. Index the book if you have to, but make sure you know it forwards and backwards so you don't got to spend a bunch of time referencing rules.
Know your players.
3 is know your players, build trust in them. And do a good job explaining the game, what you're going to do, what you're not going to do.
And taking a note from Fate, that high concept. What is this all about?
Yeah.
And that
elevator pitch.
Yeah, that elevator pitch I think is critical.
Right on. So I think that'll do it for this one.
Right on, everybody.
Right on. Right on.
Thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Just One More Fix. Music has been provided by Kevin MacLeod. You can find him at incompetech.com. You can find us at justonemorefix.com and follow us on Twitter at JustOneMoreFix.